Well, hello, and welcome to an Arknights Operator's Mediocre guide featuring the arts-assaulting, mushroom doggoing pancake plushie herself, Ceobe, who has a stomach as empty as your brain. The core caster, same as Amiya, deals arch damage to one target at a time, a very standard caster subclass, insert transition voice line here?
Yosh!
This first talent really amplifies the Honey Biscuit's damage against high defense enemies. Each hit deals extra arts damage based on up to 40% of the enemy's defense stat. Usually with casters, you'd want them to go after enemies with high defense but low arts resistance. Those types of enemies, there is even a sort of tutorial with that, so dealing even more damage on top of that is great. And it's no big deal if an enemy does have arts resistance, as long as a defense stat exists, you will be doing extra damage with this talent. So it's kinda more tailored for elite or boss enemies. The second talent gets the doggo to eat her mushrooms all alone. Sometimes you just need a bit of you time, but when those 4 adjacent tiles around Ceobe are not occupied by friends, she gets a slight attack and attack speed boost. It's not the most necessary to go out of your way to gain the boosts, but it does encourage using Ceobe in a way where your deployment of her is likely only temporary, such as once again setting up for elite or boss takedowns. Skill 1, Really Cold Axe, a very original skill name. The next attack gets a damage boost and inflicts a bind for up to 3 seconds. The skill can hold up to 3 charges, and the skilled up attack will prioritize unblocked enemies. If you want to hold 3 charges of the skill, it's gotta be M2. If you want to increase the bind from 2.5 seconds to 3, you're gonna need to M3 it. It's nice that the skill does go for unblocked enemies first, giving the bind effect some value you can work with, because no one likes binding an enemy that can't move anyways, for example when they're blocked. In the case of a single target, you can bind for longer than 3 seconds if skill charges are available, as inflicting the bind on an already binded enemy just refreshes the duration. Not bad at all for the Honey Biscuit lover. Along with the cold axes, the Mushroom Addict is also equipped with really hot knives, which I would not recommend holding for too long. It sort of burns and everything. The time between attacks drops to up to 1/3 of the original value for up to 40 seconds. During this time, Ceobe will prioritize attacking enemies with the highest defense, within range of course. As mentioned in Ceobe's first talent, many high defense enemies tend to have lower arts resistance, allowing this skill to exploit that weakness and optimize damage dealt. It's also a part of the reason why Steward is a nice 3-star caster. Additionally, the rapid fire hitting increases the value brought by the first talent as each hit gets that bonus damage. The higher the defense of the target, the more damage the skill will be dealing, but even without the bonus talent damage, you're still getting the DPS out there, which as that area is concerned, skill 2 takes the mushroom flavored cake. Just be a little careful on when you use it, cause you may accidentally target stuff you don't intend for. From one descriptive skill title to another, we have Ceobe's third skill, Really Heavy Spear, which for 60 seconds does the following. Attack range expands slightly, the attack stat gains a massive boost, hits on enemies will silence them for up to 5 seconds, the doggo's attacking type changes from arts to physical, and prioritizes javelining enemies with the lowest defense and range. I don't really know how to feel about this skill. It's one of those ultimate sort of high SP cost skills you see on 6 stars. It does last a while, so you have that going for it. On one hand, it's a cool skill. You don't often see caster operators flat out swap to physical damage, which if you need it, it's there, but on the other hand, if you need physical damage, why not swap the operator out for something like a Deadeye Sniper, who does have the innate go for low defense enemies. But on the other hand, the silence is useful, one example being for stopping on-death exploding enemies like those sluggy spiders, but on the other hand, it feels built for a very specific situation, if a selective low defense target is needed to be taken down, but at least you get to see some very cute chucking animations. As far as modules are concerned, I personally recommend the really dry piece of bread. Not for consumption, but for chucking at your enemies. Not only does the armor pounding talent deal extra damage, but repeated hits against the same target will increase the scaling even further, making Ceobe more effective as a single target damage dealer. Even better since the initial module buff on this is getting to ignore 10 arts resistance. Your other module option is a knife I made, and by I mean Ceobe. It buffs up her loner talent and gains SP when hitting elite or boss enemies. I think that goes great with the skill 1 application, taking a more crowd control-y role. So how do we use our blade flinging doggo? Each skill has its own use. If you find a reason to go for skill 1 or 3, by all means go for it. I'll mention something about skill 1 real quick. The binding skill when max does last for a good amount of time. 3 seconds for the 6 SP cost, leaving only about 3 SP's worth of time for the enemy to move forward. Useful for stalling if you combine it with an operator that inflicts a slow debuff. Or cough cough SP generation shenanigan strategies? For general use, I recommend skill 2 just because of how well it synergizes with her defense scaling talent. It gets her into a single target damaging role, who, when the skill is active, usually targets bulkier enemies as they tend to have the higher defense, making more efficient use of Ceobe's attacks. As you may have guessed, this makes the Mushroom Lover an option for some boss killing, almost undistracted by the enemies around her because of their generally higher defenses compared to other enemies, pumping out as much damage as she can. Just make sure you mop up the enemies Ceobe isn't targeting. That's really it. You don't really need to overthink too much on how to use Ceobe, just the environment on which you place her down. Single target damage dealer is a sort of the key takeaway here. She does not perform as well against many targets at once. Finally, here are Ceobe's stats, potentials, trust bonus, some factory-based skills, and my E264 M3 hungry doggo, who's just doing her thing, whatever that food-related thing is.
Konnichiwa, Doctor!
And that was the Ceobe guide. Here's one more shot of the pancakey operator, international shipping costs be damned.